Good evening, good people. You are once again welcome to Probe. Probe is your most reliable and authoritative consumer watchdog, which is hinged on compliance, public safety, and quality assurance. Tonight, we're going to discuss the health impact of pesticides. They are found everywhere in the environment, nutrition, and general agricultural practice. They are there with us everywhere, and they're posing a great threat. There comes a brief documentary on the topic.
Pesticides are used in crop production to improve yield and quality because of increased food demand. However, inappropriate use of pesticides can be detrimental to human health as farmers and consumers are exposed to their toxic residues. Pesticide applications to crops results in varying levels of residues remaining in or on our food. The application of pesticides, which are insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, and so on, does not only take place while the crop is growing, but are also applied as a seed treatment or post-harvest to assist with transportation, storage, or the cosmetic look of a particular item. The residues detected on a particular food item will depend on which pesticides have been used and how long they take to decompose. Food items may contain the residues of just one pesticide, while in others, the residues of multiple pesticides will be detectable. Pesticides such as DDT and Lindan are banned, but they remain in use due to weak import controls and inadequate monitoring. The indiscriminate use of pesticides, especially during fruiting and pre-harvesting stages, and non-adoption of safe waiting periods lead to pesticide residues accumulating in the produce. The consequences for humans are dizziness and diarrhea. Chronic health effects such as cancer, birth defects, infertility, brain, nervous, immune systems, and organ damage are also imminent.
We'll take a brief commercial break, and when we are back, I will introduce our guests.
For sales and service, visit Japan Motors on the Graphic Road in Accra or any of our showrooms nationwide, or call 0302-682-223 or 0302-682-220.
Dusty. Oh, so this is the project, eh?
Oh, yeah. Now, what's left is the wiring.
Critical. Massa, wiring there. Go for the best.
Let's go.
Hey! Son, I head don't die like that. Look, you've made the best choice. I know because I use tropical cable when I put out my place. Massa, with tropical, if it be fire,
It no be the wire.
if it be best quality cable, it be tropical.
And now, the Den, my sports center. Just for boys.
Nice one.
Flat screen TV, home theater set, air conditioner, bar, whatever.
Dusty, eh?
That's why from town to city, city to country, and country to continent, many more people are saying yes to Tropical Cable. For quality cables and also switches, sockets, and accessories no matter the job, use Tropical Cable. Locally made, internationally certified. Tropical Cable and Conductor Limited. Topapa Preku. Invest in the best.
You are welcome back. With me to discuss the harmful effects of pesticides or agrochemicals in general on human health is Reverend Professor Sadito, a former Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University for Development Studies. Prof, you are welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Agrochemicals, or the insecticide industry, commenced actively from the 40s with the discovery of DDT, which was then a remarkable chemical to the fight against pests or insects. And ever since, several agrochemicals have been churned out, which in generally have contributed immensely to crop yield and then improved, in some cases, improved health care. Would you want to take us back to history? Give us a brief historical background to agrochemicals.
Well, thank you so much. Agrochemicals, as you've rightly said, have contributed a lot to food production, and especially in Ghana, cocoa production. But definitely it has a lot of problems, which we want to talk about. But as you also rightly said, until the 1960s, agrochemicals were not really used that much in Africa, or maybe generally. But the use of agrochemicals came into Ghana in particular as a result of cocoa production. When they had cap seeds and other diseases of cocoa, that is when these things came into being. But most of the organochlorides, which we normally call OC, had been banned in the developed countries since the 1960s. But we still use them. They actually come in here and we still use them. Things we call organophosphates were introduced in the 70s. Well, okay, in the 60s. The decarbamates were introduced in the 70s. And until the 70s and 80s, we're not really having herbicides and fungicides. They came much later. But as I said, for Ghana, it was mainly for us to use in the cocoa industry to produce cocoa because of black pod and these capsids that came in. So generally, that's how it started in Ghana. But currently, it's now virtually used in almost all cases of production especially agricultural production. And that is where we begin to have some problems. With cocoa, you realize that because that is more of a industrial crop, even if you use it, by the time it goes into processing and then getting to
the value addition, the chain,
yes, to get system. The food, most of the time, by that time, maybe a lot of
the effect
would have actually reduced a lot. But now we are using directly on food, and that's why it's now becoming even such a serious problem.
Okay, we'll come to that. But,
okay, but I was just going to also mention that even with cocoa, you realize that over time, people have been talking of organic cocoa.
Yeah.
Even though, as I said, it might not have been as serious as what we are having now.
No.
But the fact that people are talking about organic cocoa implies that even with that, we need to be careful.
Okay. Prior to the coming in of agrochemicals, how has farming been like typically for the African?
Yeah, the reason why we are using agrochemicals is to increase yields, mainly. And before then, we're basically increasing yields through use of organic manure, or farmyard manure, they normally say. And that increased yields by itself in that sense.
Prof, the use of those pesticides, notwithstanding, are accompanied by immense environmental and toxicological effects. Would you want to enumerate some of them?
Well, it is probably better to, as we already mentioned, to look at it in terms of how it affects, let me start with the soil.
So then we will look at the environment first.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to discuss this issue. We'll look at it from the environmental point of view, and then we'll come to nutrition.
Okay.
And then from nutrition, we look at agric in general, if you want it that way. But so let us look at it from the environmental.
The agrochemicals in general affect the soil, the water, and air. So in other words, in terms of the environment generally, when you use any agrochemicals, the soil is affected, the air is affected, and the water is affected. Water bodies are affected, or water in general. So there are effects on, maybe let's take the soil first.
Okay.
The soil has a lot of bacteria, helpful bacteria. So when you spray, like using weedicide, yes, you would be able to kill the weeds. By in killing the weeds, you kill virtually anything in the soil. It is true that they sometimes manufacture various agrochemicals to kill specific insects or specific pesticides, including weeds. But it's really very difficult to always be able to get the particular weed to kill or the particular insect to kill. And especially when you are manufacturing something in other countries. You're not really too sure what kinds of insects in Ghana, for example, you are killing. And therefore, you end up probably killing everything. And especially for good, beneficial bacteria, beneficial microorganisms that are in the soil, the likelihood is that you'll kill them. And many of them are really very useful. Apart from the environment in general, they are very useful for agricultural production. We'll probably come back to that. Yeah. Then it increases the nitrate in the soil. And the problem with nitrate, and for that matter, many other chemicals of that, is the increase in the greenhouse emissions, gas emissions that we've already been talking about, which has a whole lot of problems with respect to global warming, and then climate change and all that. And that has a lot of effect on that. So that also is a big problem. Then it changes the acidity of the soil. The pH, there's always a balance for these microorganisms to exist, or even plants to exist in the soil. And when you use them, you change the whole pH level and so on. One of the things we know is that when soil becomes very acidic, hardly anything can grow in it. And one of the things we know is that areas that are very dry, like the Upper East region, the soil has become so acidic that even when you add fertilizer, it doesn't do anything. So you really have to probably use lime to be able to bring it back to normal and so on. So those things are things that are really affecting the soil. Then when you come to water, when you use it, definitely the residues go into water. And both animals, human beings, so many people drink the water. And we are talking of inorganic agrochemicals. Yes. And those are very dangerous to so many, to humans generally, or for that matter, all living organisms. And that itself is a very serious problem.
Before you go on, for our viewers to be able to appreciate exactly what we are talking about, will you want to explain the difference between organic and inorganic agrochemicals?
All right. Many things that are organic, including the human body, animal body, are organic. Living things are organic. Most of the things that are non-living tend to be inorganic. And anytime you take anything organic, it assimilates into the body system because it's part of organic. Anything inorganic most of them tend not to be able to be assimilated into the system. And for most of these chemicals, they always have this of depositing the chemical in you.
System, yeah.
So what they normally say is that, well, let's use it at the minimum. But you realize that if you use today at the minimum and use tomorrow at the minimum and third day at the minimum, it can easily accumulate in the system. So whether it's an animal or whether it's a human being, there's that accumulation over time. And that accumulation in the system over time can cause a whole lot of problems, and probably we'll come to that. But the pollution of water, even groundwater, goes in there, and we can easily drink it. It gets a problem into us and so on. So that is a problem. Then the air. The same thing, you use chemicals, it pollutes the air. And everybody depends on the air to survive.
So
in general, the whole environment is negatively affected by the kinds of agrochemicals we use. Then coming to agriculture or food production, definitely the soil is part of the food production that we're talking about. But the area I really want to concentrate on is this use of weedicides, killing the weeds. You kill the weeds to plant so that it will come up. And as I said, you virtually kill the soil. And the day the soil is killed, human beings are actually killed because we actually depend on soil. Without soil, there's no life. Because we depend on plants, animals depend on plants, and we all depend on that. So that use of weedicide, just because we think that labor is expensive.
Prof, talking about this, the World Health Organization has identified over 170 agrochemicals, which it has categorized some as highly hazardous pesticides, HHPs, and then hazardous and moderately hazardous. As we speak, Benin, a West African neighbor, has banned 38 of its labeled moderately hazardous pesticides. The Gambia has banned 37 of them. Ghana is still hooked to them. The Environmental Protection Agency is the regulator of these. And it's, as you are enumerating the danger, the health hazards of these two environments, the soil, the environment in general, I'm beginning to appreciate how these affect us. Because if we are to be leaving deposits in our systems, Prof, what are the effects of these agrochemicals to humans?
Well, they will tell that agricultural economists are not experts in pesticides and so on, but that is a different matter. But the point is that I have so much interest in that area and linked to, as you said.
Prof, that is so sorry to cut you in. We'll take a commercial break, and when we return, you will take us on this. You are watching Probe, and today we are discussing the effects of agrochemicals to humans and the environment. With me doing that is Reverend Professor Sadito, former Pro-Vice Chancellor of the UDS. This program is brought to you by the kind courtesy of Japan Motors driven by excellence, and Tropical Cable and Conductors, Topapa Prekon, as well as Best Western Premier Hotel. We'll be right back.
Dusty. Oh, so this is a project, eh?
Oh, yeah. Now, what's left is the wiring.
Critical. Massa, wiring there. Go for the best.
Let's go.
Hey! Son, I head don't die like that. Look, you've made the best choice. I know because I use tropical cable when I put out my place. Massa, with tropical, if it be fire,
it no be the wire.
If it be best quality cable, it be tropical.
And now, the Den, my sports center. Just for boys.
Nice one.
Flat screen TV, home theater set, air conditioner, bar, whatever.
Dusty.
That's why from town to city, city to country, and country to continent, Many more people are saying yes to tropical cable. For quality cables and also switches, sockets and accessories no matter the job, use tropical cable. Locally made, internationally certified. Tropical Cable and Conductor Limited. Topapa Preku. Invest in the best.
For sales and service, visit Japan Motors on the Graphic Road in Accra or any of our showrooms nationwide, or call 0302 682 223 or 0302 682 220.
You are welcome back. Prof, you are an agricultural economist. An agricultural economist who is passionate about the use of agrochemicals and its impact to environment and human health. You have enumerated in detail how these chemicals impact the environment. How do they affect us as humans?
Okay, very good. Yes, I'm very passionate. And it is important because normally agri-economists are always looking for, well, let's produce much, let's make profits. And that tends to override very important considerations. And that's why I'm really extremely passionate about it, because this drive to make profit and make high yield and so on at the expense of human beings, human health, and human survival, I would say, is the thing that is really making me get so passionate about it. But the point is that if a little is good, more will be good. Yeah. But if a more is bad, or a little is bad, more will be bad. Or for that matter, if more is bad, little will be bad. And agrochemicals are poison. And you realize that to say that, well, poison is just small, doesn't really exist. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't matter how much how much water you have. If you put a drop of poison in it, it's poison. Everything becomes poisonous. And that's exactly what it is, especially to human beings. So I find it difficult for people to think that, well, yes, there are some regulations and all that and all that. That is not to say that we should ban it completely. For sure, that's not what I'm also saying. But I'm saying that we have to really be very careful. And how do we actually get affected by it? And everything you eat, if it becomes poisonous, it means you are slowly poisoning yourself.
To death.
To death. And even the eating itself has, and you can realize that there are so many things we are now eating, and you taste it and you start wondering, is this really what I have been eating? You take bananas. Anytime you are driving across to maybe to Kumasi or to Tamale, everybody stops and says, I want local bananas. Very few people want the exotic one. Why? Because they tend to say, well, okay, this one, there's too much fertilizer on it. So just because you're using fertilizer, which is even not as
these days,
serious...
you taste mangoes, the bigger mango. You taste some and then you can...
You start wondering.
You taste agrochemical.
Okay. So you realize that just that somehow even the taste itself has a problem. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should even go further to chicken. Mm-hmm. If you take local chicken and take the exotic chicken, when you eat it, you see a difference.
Yes.
You can taste the difference. Yeah. And I know that even in Britain now, the craze for local chicken has become so high. Yeah. Just the taste has... That means a chemical going into those... The production of those, that meat...
hazardous too.
...is a problem. Yeah. But let me come to very good examples that we have. In irrigation, and I've been in irrigation also for quite some time. In irrigation right now, the women, and we've been dealing with some women in irrigation, and they buy the vegetables to go and sell. And they tell us that, look, before they go and harvest vegetables to sell, they spray them. So if they want to harvest, maybe in the evening, they'll spray in the morning or sometimes go and harvest in the evening.
But that is supposed not to be right.
And the reason is this. When you spray, it looks green, very beautiful, very nice.
Okay.
And anybody who goes to market, that's the one you want, not the one that has holes. So they'll tell you that those that have holes, the vegetables that have holes, they eat it at home. Okay. But the one that is fresh and looking nice, they sell it in the market. But you realize that that one with holes tends to be more of greater quality
yes,
than the one that you sell.
Wholesome for human consumption.
Exactly. But you are looking just at this.
But there is a regulation by the EPA that before, WAP has been working with the EPA on this. And before you harvest, you will have to spray 2 weeks before you harvest. So that it is expected that by which time the plant system would have assimilated and do away with all deposits of such.
How many of us in Ghana have that information? Who is going to monitor that? Who is going to ensure that that actually works? So the problem we are having in developing countries generally, especially Ghana, is that yes, we have all the laws.
Yes.
I mean, we have beautiful laws, but none of them is effective because there's no way you can put them into.
In our subsequent editions, we will engage the EPA.
But the problem with EPA, how many people are working in EPA?
And
where can they
decentralized are their operations?
Yes. And even if they are, let's take a region, Ashanti region, there are 10 of them, 10 workers in Ashanti region. That is nothing.
You mean this, Prof? They have 10 workers?
No, I'm just giving an example.
Okay.
I'm saying even if they have, I'm not saying they have up to 10.
Yeah.
I'm saying if they have, say, 10 workers in, say, Ashanti region, how many places can they go and what can they? Exactly. So the whole thing is not somebody going around telling people this is what you should do. The whole thing is people to get convinced that, look, I should not kill somebody. I should not do something that will kill somebody. But we don't have that kind of mentality within our system, especially when everybody is doing anything to make money. And our tendency is that do anything you can do to make money.
And the regulator is asleep.
The regulator may not even be asleep, but the regulator can do nothing because it doesn't have the means to be able to get things working. So we should find a way of preventing
Are we in a failed state? Are we in a failed system? Everything seems not to be working. Now the very food that we eat to live has become threats.
How many of the chemical people selling agrochemicals actually tell people that I am selling this chemical, it is dangerous, and therefore don't do this, don't do that? Very few people.
There is a law to labeling. There is a law to labeling. You will see a particular agrochemical which is sold in this country, and it is labeled in French.
Okay. Even if it's labeled in English, how many of us actually read labels? I'm talking of educated people. How many of us actually read labels? Not to talk of many people who cannot even read. Many of our farmers may not even be able to read at all. And even educated people don't read labels. So we have a lot of problems with law, with thinking that people should do this when we know they are not doing it. So we should find a way of actually solving the problem, else we end up killing people.
The picture you are painting is so scary and very dangerous.
I want to make sure it is.
We will take a commercial break, and on our return, we will discuss the effects of neonicotinoids. The EU is working to ban neonicotinoids. As at a fortnight ago, the EU had met and they were deliberating on this. They thought, to them, it is a threat to bee survival within the EU zone.
Very good.
This is Probe, your authoritative consumer watchdog, which is hinged on compliance, public safety, and quality assurance. As the saying goes, we eat to live. And now if we are eating to our death, that has become so much threatening. And as viewers and consumers, we must hold regulators accountable. The system must work. This program is brought to you by the kind courtesy of Japan Motors. Japan Motors, driven by excellence, Tropical Cable and Conductors, Papa Preco, and Best Western Premier Hotel. We'll be right back.
For sales and service, visit Japan Motors on the Graphic Road in Accra or any of our showrooms nationwide, or call 0302 682 223 or 0302 682 220.
Dusty. Oh, so this is the project, eh?
Yeah. Now, what's left is the wiring.
Critical. Massa, wiring there. Go for the best.
Let's go.
Hey, Sana head don't die like that. Look, you've made the best choice. I know because I use tropical cable when I put out my place. Massa, with tropical, if it be fire,
It no be the wire.
if it be best quality cable, it be tropical.
And now, the Den, my sports center. Just for boys.
Nice one.
Flat screen TV, home theater set, air conditioner, bar, whatever.
Dusty, eh?
That's why from town to city, city to country, and country to continent, many more people are saying yes to tropical cable. For quality cables and also switches, sockets, and accessories no matter the job, use tropical cable. Locally made, internationally certified. Tropical Cable and Conductor Limited. Topapa Preku. Invest in the best.
Okay, you are welcome back. Acetamiprid is a common neonicotinoid in Ghana. Neonicotinoids are agrochemicals that, as Prof indicated earlier, they are inorganic agrochemicals that work within plant systems. Unlike those that actually work on the surface, those ones are assimilated by the plant system. So they go through the plant's roots and get into the system proper. And according to the scientists, eventually some or part of them are shed off. Study by scientists in the EU have come to the realization that neonicotinoids have much eventual leaf concentrations in their petals, and then bees sucking from those petals and so on are affected. They actually paralyzed, and it's threatening to bee life.
Yeah.
And Ghana, we are hooked to it. Nobody is considering anything. DDT was banned in the 60s, right?
Long ago.
Long ago, by the Western world. We are still, though it's banned in Ghana, but DDT can be found. DDT is used.
It's used even for fishing.
It's
even
used
still,
for fishing.
till today.
How
Yes.
do they get into the system, Prof?
Well, again, the same thing we are talking about. I mean, we can't police all our borders for sure, and people are ready to still sell anything as long as they can sell. Like you see people selling things, drugs or so on the street when they don't even know what drug they are selling. So that is a big, and in the villages it's terrible. As for the villages, I mean, who is even going to see what you are selling? So that is a big problem. But the bee thing is a very critical area. You know, we all know that pollination. It's not only just the one you are talking about. Even the spraying and killing bees is a very, and other insects are very dangerous things, are very serious problems. We all know that a lot of our food comes out of pollination. It was not for nothing that God instituted this pollination thing. And we are thinking that we can eat unpollinated food and we are okay. So you kill the the bees, kill even some birds out of it actually, kill all the insects that help in all this pollination. And we end up having fruits that are not, or seeds that are not pollinated. And that's why most of them cannot even germinate. So the thing that we tend to forget is that these were put there for special purposes for our own good, our own consumption. And we are just using this to destroy them. And we still think that we can have the kind of nutrition that we should have had. We cannot, because we are not eating the correct food, even though, well, we may be eating, we may say that, well, okay, this is
Prof,
maize, when it's not really the maize that we should have.
How do you think we should tackle the problem?
For me,
Because
as long as it was possible to be able to cultivate without most of these agrochemicals, as we said, some of them are very lethal, and there's a difference. We could probably be looking for the very minor ones, which may not be as effective as the very strong ones, very lethal ones, and just do that because at least we must be able to survive. But I think we should go back to the basics, because they are biological controls. You see, God didn't leave us just empty. Well, that if this happens, you can do nothing about it. You see, the natural nature are such that there are predators for harmful things, and they consume them. Yeah. And when they consume them, they actually get them out. Yeah. Somebody was just telling me a very good story when I was coming. Armyworm, that came. The armyworm is actually from South America. And it got here from South America. But in South America, according to what my colleague was telling me, they have a predator, a natural predator.
For armyworm.
For armyworm. That is the armyworm. So even though it started from there, or it is based there, that this natural predator, which is also a living thing,
the ecosystem,
eats it. We don't have that predator here. Yeah. So it comes and it destroys everything, and we are using chemical to control it. They are not using chemical to control it.
And the chemical eventually become harmful.
So what is happening is that we had natural predators, but because we continue spraying, we kill them off.
Yes. We kill those predators.
Predators off. And then they cannot feed on these ones. Yes. And for almost all insects, the mutation is very easy. Even human beings, your cells can mutate. So what happens is that when you spray for some time, like they have been changing drugs and so on, the truth is that after some time, they mutate and change. So that when you spray, it doesn't do anything to them. They still don't die. So it means you have to get another chemical. What I really want to point out is the fact that we are killing ourselves slowly. And it's beginning to see in many, many things. In these cancers that we're having, a lot of them are a source of that. Infertility. Yes. I mean, that even became very serious in the Bronx. I have read it some time back. Okay. By spraying tomato. By spraying tomato, the young guys were becoming infertile. They can't, not just infertile, they cannot even have any sensible sex with a woman. Oh, okay. It's
erectile dysfunction.
Exactly. Wow. That was becoming a very serious problem, and that was well known to everybody in
Bronx.
Yes, in parts of those who were cultivating the
tomatoes. Yes.
So those things are very well known, that it has a lot of miscarriages. There are many miscarriages that come out of just this chemical pollution that we're talking about. So there are so much destruction coming out of all those ones. So therefore, we should find a way. And as I said, we have biological controls. Not only that, we have organic pesticides. There are organic pesticides. Neem, for example, it's well known that neem can do so many things.
Okay, neem from the tree.
Yeah, just the neem, even the leaf, the fruit,
the bark.
So many parts of it can be used to do so much. And there are so many others. We are not even trying, we are not even working on them. Because I, for example, know that there's a weed called striga. Yeah. Striga is very, very harmful as a weed, harmful to cereals. Okay. But striga, when you burn it, it kills mosquitoes. Okay. And that's what, in the villages, that's what they use. They go and take the striga, put it in the room, and just burn it.
It means it's an insecticide.
It is an insecticide. We'll see it as a weed, but you take, yes, it's a weed on the farm, but you can use that to take care of something like mosquitoes. So there are ways, but to me, I don't know whether we as scientists are very lazy and we are not really doing our work well, because all these things are there.
Maybe
and by now, we should have been
some tropical scientists.
Professor Dito, we should have been able to get some of these things
we will
and
have
work on them.
It is a very passionate issue, Personally, I'm equally passionate about this, the rate at which the young ones are dropping. Now, erectile dysfunction and all this, we can't continue having this in our midst. Going forward, in the future, if we continue with this trend, it means it's not going to be any good for us.
Yeah.
In wrapping up, what will you say?
Well, I think the first thing, the things that have caused all this is for us seeking money by any means without knowing that this idea of let me do anything and get money through production and food selling and all that, without realizing that you are doing great harm, not only to other people, but you yourself. As somebody has always been saying, you are selling tomato, which you have virtually poisoned, and thinking that you are selling to somebody else. When you go to the market or when you come to town and you go into a restaurant or a chop bar to eat, you may be eating exactly what you've poisoned.
Exactly.
Or your child is eating what has been poisoned. Yeah. So in the long run, you're actually poisoning yourself. It's not that people don't know that some of these things are dangerous and they are bad.
But there are no alternatives.
But no, if I can make money out of it, why don't I? If this is the easiest way to make money, why don't I? And some of it is out of ignorance. For example, the chemicals that we use when you want to put maize, you want to store maize, you put a chemical inside.
Yeah.
Again, as you rightly said, it will be okay after maybe 2 weeks or some weeks.
Yes.
But somehow you say, okay, I need money today.
So let me.
Then you go and sell in the market.
So
and you realize that you are already killing somebody just because you must get money today because maybe you want to go somewhere or someone to the hospital.
Prof,
so there are so many problems.
This is all time will allow us. The situation is so dicey, dangerous to us. We will try to get the regulators, officials from EPA, and find out what exactly they are doing by allowing some of these poisons into the system. You have been watching Probe, your authoritative and reliable consumer watchdog, which is hinged on compliance, public safety, and quality assurance. Trust us, we will probe the pressing needs that are your concern. This program is brought to you by kind courtesy Japan Motors. Japan Motors, driven by excellence, Tropical Cable and Conductors, Topapa Precon, and Best Western Premier Hotel. My name is Prince Zakaria. I have been having this discussion with the Reverend Professor Sadito, a former Pro-Vice Chancellor of EDS. Prof, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Great talking to you.
Thank you.